The ministry of the Word and God's dispensing for God's economy. The measure of God's rule and ministry on spiritual warfare. Week 4, Day 1. Morning Nourishment. 2 Corinthians 10:13-14. But we will not boast beyond our measure, but according to the measure of the rule which the God of measure has apportioned to us, to reach even as far as you, for we are not extending ourselves beyond our bounds. Galatians 2:8. For he who operated in Peter for the apostleship to the circumcision operated also in me for the Gentiles. The apostle was bold, but he was not bold without limit. This shows that he was under the restriction of the Lord. His boasting was according to the measure of the rule which the God of measure, the ruling God, had apportioned to him. Paul's ministry to the Gentile world, including Corinth, was according to the measure of God. Hence, his boast was within this limit, and in contrast to that of the Judaizers, was not without measure. The word rule in 2 Corinthians 10:13 literally means a measuring rod, like the rule of a carpenter. The word measure in verse 13 indicates being ruled by God. God has allotted us just so much for our work and experience. Furthermore, He has given us just so much to enjoy. Therefore, when we give a testimony about our work, experience, or enjoyment of the Lord, we must testify within measure, that is, within a certain limit. Today's reading. The reports in certain Christian publications are exaggerations. Those reports go beyond measure, beyond limit, without restriction. In testifying of our experience, we must stay within the measure that God has given us. We should not boast without measure, beyond measure. There is one who is ruling and measuring. This one is the God of measure, the God who rules. Therefore, we must stay within the limits of God's ruling, of God's measuring. Paul's words, reach even as far as you, indicates that his coming to the Corinthians was under God's ruling and measuring. In contrast to the Judaistic teachers, Paul and the other apostles did not extend themselves beyond their bounds. They were the first to go to Europe and hence to the Corinthians with the gospel. If the Judaizers had gone there first, probably the apostles would not have gone, and that would have been the sign that Europe had not been measured to them under God's ruling. This is related to Paul's point in arguing with the Judaizers. In verses 15 and 16, Paul says, "We are not boasting beyond our measure in others' labors, but have the hope, as your faith is increasing, to be magnified in you according to our rule unto abundance, so that we may announce the gospel unto those parts beyond you, not so that we may boast in another man's rule and things already prepared." Here we see that the apostles had the hope that through the increase of the Corinthian believers' faith, the apostles' ministry would be magnified in the sense of being praised by being enlarged and increased abundantly, yet still according to the rule, the measure that God had apportioned to them. Paul hoped to be magnified in the Corinthians according to the limit of God's measuring. Do not expect a spread that is without measure. From experience, we can testify that if we spread the work according to the Spirit, there will always be a certain limit. Inwardly, we will have the consciousness that the Lord intends to spread the work only to a certain extent. Furthermore, outwardly, in the environment, the Lord may cause matters to restrict the spread of the work. Therefore, inwardly, we do not have the peace to spread the work beyond a certain point, and outwardly, the environment does not allow us to go beyond a particular boundary line. The young people are not yet very much into the Lord's work. Nevertheless, I would encourage them to keep this word within them, for one day they will experience it. We all need to learn that in serving the Lord and in working with God, there is always a limit. This is also true in the service of the church.